Hello.
Hey man, how are you?
Good, thanks. How you doing?
Yeah, I'm really good. You're the only one on here so far. Everyone else is asleep.
Oh, sweet. Is that because you've changed the time, or
Ah,
is that because you've changed the time?
I think so. I think so. I've made it obviously a lot earlier. There's some people that are in the UK and maybe actually the rest of Europe, and they never manage to get on because I always have it in the evening US, and they're always asleep there. So I switched it up to try and let some of those in, but um, you know, no one's here yet. So
Yeah, thanks for doing that. It's helpful for sure. It's like the middle of the afternoon.
oh, really?
Yeah,
Where are you
middle of
at?
the afternoon. I'm in Glasgow, so I'm London time.
Oh, no way. Okay, great. So it has worked.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's 1 p.m. I've just got my lunch here.
Oh, okay, awesome, awesome, awesome. How you doing, man?
Good, man. Really good. I've been kind of like keeping this whole thing at arm's length because I've got so much on at the moment, and it's kind of a new field. But I had a little back and forth with you by email, and I kind of was explaining how I fell into the whole like journalism side of documentary, and
Yeah,
like I never thought I'd end up doing it. I was just going towards like action sports and mostly doing kind of client stuff, and I don't know, coming up. I was doing kind of more cinematography and the creative side of stuff, and then found this story and started digging, and then realized like, man, I have to make this film. And it went from like a 20-minute, short film to then, okay, no longer than 40 minutes. And now it's at feature length, and we're trying to find funding to really make it happen. And it's kind of blown up because it's a really big story that needs it, right?
well,
So,
congratulations.
yeah, thanks. Yeah, it's a hell of a process.
It is a big process, isn't it? Hey, remind me, what's your feature length film on?
um, it's about it starts off with like the surf community and like water user community in Scotland, who talk about like the mental, physical, spiritual benefits of the ocean and bodies of water generally. Um, and I kind of started with like a Patagonia approach, of like, here's this beautiful land that we use to do the sports that we enjoy and whatever. And then there's this problem, which is that there's a lot of like raw, undiluted sewage making its way into the rivers and on the coastlines at the moment. And it's a big problem in England, but it turns out it's worse in Scotland. And because it's publicly owned in Scotland, it's not really, it's kind of almost covered up. It's not really talked about very much. And there's all kinds of activism, there's all kinds of stuff that's been going on in the last like 4 or 5 years, although it's been a problem for much longer than that. So people are starting to wake up to it. And during COVID, especially, people like started noticing because they actually started walking down the rivers and using the natural spaces around them. And yeah, it turns out that there's this massive problem, and that there might be some errors made and some kind of messing with numbers that's been done by the government. So I'm there in the middle of all of this. I was just going to make a film about a surfer, making his way down the coast because he got sick a couple times, wanted to raise some awareness, classic. Yeah. And I thought, I can't stop there. And I started digging, and I just found so much information, started speaking to loads of people, and hence why the project just grew arms and legs. It's really grown.
That's great. I think that's such an important topic. I always try and teach people to find a hook, an angle, or a frame for a story or a project. Like there's a lot of beginners will be interested in, well, fashion or sports or travel. You can shoot those things and you can make pretty images. Surfing also, you can make nice images of surfing. It lends itself to that, but it's hard to sell those images because so many other people are making similar quality images. But if you can package it in a frame that is bigger than the sum of its parts, then you can do so much with it. And perhaps that's why this project of yours has found traction already.
Yeah, and I was kind of testing it as I went. Like everybody I spoke to would give me really encouraging feedback. They'd say, "Whoa, this story's nuts," or like, "You're really onto something. I had no idea," and like all that sort of stuff. And I think, to be honest, what led me to that, and then what's happening at the moment, is like I've moved from pretty images, because I think at the beginning as well, when you start out, you're so focused on all the technical stuff because you want your stuff to look good and sound good and all that.
Yeah.
That you just focus on that stuff. And as soon as you start to get to grips with it, like at least for me, I just found that it has to be driven by characters who have some kind of thing they're struggling with, or some kind of story that goes a little deeper than just the images.
Yeah.
And more, it's just kind of led me down that path. So just, halfway through this whole process, that's when I don't know what I must have clicked on for the algorithm to line up, but your ad showed up on Instagram, like it has for other people, I think.
Yeah.
I was intrigued because I saw that little PDF thing that you made.
Yeah.
And you really, it looked like you were really digging into like issues and speaking to people, and you can find out a lot about an issue by going really, really deep into like one person's story, or maybe like two or three.
Yeah.
And I was just fascinated by that whole thing. And like, I never wanted to be a journalist. I still probably don't. I really like that side, the storytelling components that are in there, and how those fit into documentary and storytelling. Like those are the things that have brought me here for sure.
Yeah. Thanks, man. Well, I'm glad you clicked that link. That seems to have worked pretty well for a lot of people. It's I have like a few dollars ad spend behind it that I think just pushes it to the right people, which is really lucky, because I don't know what I'm doing with marketing or any of that stuff. And also, I think perhaps we're similar in this respect. I never really wanted to be a journalist either. That wasn't the driving factor. It was, or the driving force. It was just that I get itchy, and I like new experience, and I don't really like to be behind a desk. So when I was younger, I would travel a lot and try to see other people's perspective, I suppose. After a while, hedonistic travel got a little bit boring, and I'd drunk enough alcohol, and I'd smoked enough weed and all of that sort of stuff. And there had to be another way to see the world, and maybe a more useful way of seeing the world. So journalism, kind of photojournalism, specifically video journalism, gave me that. And then you mentioned that it's appealing for you to tell stories deeply through one or two people's perspectives. For me also, but the way that I do it, I would try and get as close as I could to that one person or that group, and then I would try and live their experience with them. So like it's like totally immersive, but I'd find people that I found really fascinating. You ever seen Louis Theroux?
Yeah.
It's kind of that approach, really. It's get as close to them as possible and like get really under their skin, and try and, even if, and I guess I bring up Louis Theroux because some of the people that I hang around with in the past have been politically bipolar to me. So like really right wing or quite racist, quite, really people that I wouldn't agree with in real life. But I think when I spend time with them, I realize there's parallels, and we find common ground, and then we can build empathy.
Mm-hmm.
Are you a surfer?
Yeah.
Oh, so you're already in the community, so you can already live that lifestyle.
Yeah, that's helped me quite a lot, definitely. But it's not so much like the water user community. Like it's, a couple of the main characters at the beginning are surfers, and one of them is like a gym owner in Glasgow.
Yeah.
And she like goes cold water, like dips. She doesn't swim. She just likes the cold water because it's like there's a whole ritual element to it. So I'm not just focused on the surf. And although I'd love to make a film just about surfing and stuff, like one day that'd be fun. The story quickly moves on to the actual issue of the pollution, and one of the key characters actually ends up being this old man who's like 72, I think, who used to work in wastewater management and has spotted the problem as well, just from his own little village, and worked out on his own that what he was seeing meant there was a problem. He did some calculations and worked out some pretty serious stuff. And he's constantly reworking it and checking it. And so I started getting really interested in his story because he's been at it for a long time and we get on really well. So I've come in that way. But yeah, like it definitely helps if there's anything surf related, to kind of get in. But I'd say that's one of the challenges for anything else. Like I'm trying to get a bit more into like the mountain bike scene at the moment. And I've got like 2 or 3 ideas for more of this type of work, the like documentary journalism type stuff. Like I'm in contact with this organization through a friend that help refugees and asylum seekers who have come to the UK, and this organization's kind of helped them. So they told me they wanted to do a piece, and now it's kind of at a standstill, but finding access and building trust enough that I can then stay with people long enough to write something or shoot something. Right now, I have no idea how, like, what value can I bring so that they think that's, because people have their lives to live. And you coming in with a camera, why the hell would they want you around? That's kind of, I'm trying to figure that stuff out before I move forward at the moment.
Yeah, it's difficult, isn't it? It's I've found it's a little bit of like perseverance, of course, obviously. Really, it sounds like you've already got this box checked as well, but really figuring out what you're trying to do and trying to say before you approach those people so that you can trust in your own vision for the project and communicate that to them. And if you're clear with yourself, and then through clear communication, they'll trust what you're saying. If you're a little bit wishy-washy and you say, oh, I might try and publish it in the future, then they'll be like, well, mate, you're going to waste my time, man.
Yeah.
Also, I feel like it's, for me, sometimes it's just been showing up a lot, hanging out a lot, especially with people who are a little bit tentative about letting you in. It's maybe I'll show up. You have the same benefit that I have, so I live in Texas, and when I show up and I start talking with this accent, people are like, fuck, that dude's weird, why is he here? And they want to know a little bit about me. But you have the same thing over there, I would imagine. People are like, that guy's kind of weird, why is he talking, where's he from, what's he doing? So maybe you have the same, maybe that's the same in for you a little bit, which is coincidental.
Yeah.
But then it's showing up once, twice, 3 times, and continuing to show up when it feels awkward to you. Because at some point, I'm a shy person. At some point, it feels to me, I feel like, all right, I've shown up enough. Maybe they've already said no, and I've shown up again. It feels uncomfortable. But if you keep showing up like that, they'll realize you're serious, and you don't even need to have your camera out, perhaps. Or maybe it's just out, but you haven't got it up. You're not trying to shoot. They can just see that you've got a camera. They can see that you want to shoot at some point. There's that as well. That's if it's a physical place that people are meeting. If it's not, it's just a couple of emails, then follow up with a phone call. A couple of emails, follow up with a phone call. I feel like a lot of it's perseverance, and a lot of it is just being okay with being uncomfortable. It's that thing, isn't it? Like when you go, it's also like when you go and stay with a friend and you're like sleeping on their couch. After a while, they'll be like, you'll feel the energy shift as they'll try to get back to normal life, and it stops being, oh, Anton's come to hang out for a couple of days and sleep on my couch and we're going to drink some beers. After those couple of days finish, they try and get back to normal life and you're still there. You know what I mean? But you got to push through that. And as you know, once you push through that, that's where the good images come from, and that's where the good footage comes from, because they drop their guard.
Mm-hmm.
That's one perspective on access.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's mostly, I feel like that's going to be particularly useful if there's a piece where, like, I want to go and get footage of people living their life in a candid way, or like working through something challenging and just being present and like being an observer on that. So that's a really, it's very useful to know that that's just what you have to do. But another thing that I'm really interested in, and I struggle between the two, and I'm starting to realize that maybe I don't have to choose, it'll just depend on the project, but I really like pieces that that have a certain purpose. And maybe there's some conversation at the beginning where you kind of figure out, you build a relationship, build some trust, and talk to them about this project you've got. And you say, hey, I've got this idea for a piece that I'd like to shoot that's going to be, for the most part, staged, or where I'm going to, build a story or a narrative around something that's very real, that tells your story. And some of it'll be candid and shot in an artistic way, and some of it'll be sort of like moving portraits. Like, maybe there's a voiceover that comes over the top that talks about the issue. Just something that's engaging and that's different and beautiful to look at. That sort of work I really, really like. And then on the other end of this sort of stuff, I don't know if it's that two-dimensional, but I see the other end is live, I've got my camera out and I'm just filming stuff as it happens. And I'm really interested in that side of things too. Like, I don't know if you ever saw the documentary in India about this charity that come and help a community create their own tampons for a local community. I can't remember what it's called. And basically, like, they don't have a lot of sanitation or sanitary products in that area. And this organization comes in and like teaches them how to make their own, teaches them how to use it. Like, it's like a taboo subject, so nobody even talks about that stuff. It's all kind of done. It's really not healthy. It's not clean. And they come in and just introduce this, well, find out what people's opinions are on all that stuff first. And then they introduce this piece of technology, this machine, teach people how to do it, and just watch what happens, right? And then they leave and then come back, I think it's like 2 or 3 months later, to see what's happened since they went there and since they brought those machines in. And it shows, how the community's adapted to that. And, they're kind of telling them what's going on now, like they know it's their livelihood now. It's making them cash. It's helping the community. And it's amazing to see this transformation. And pretty much, I think all of that is just shot like live and as it happens, and they'll pull people aside for quick interviews. But a lot of the time it's just, people will chat, towards the interviewer while they're doing stuff. And I loved that style as well. I think it's probably harder, to be honest.
Yeah. Well, a little bit messy.
Yeah, I guess, it just makes you feel like you're there, rather than it's all super clean and beautiful and tidied up. You got a camera, there's some shake sometimes because you got to follow what's going on. You're trying to make sure you're getting your audio and stuff's happening, so you've got to be present with your camera and know what story you're trying to tell. And to me, that's harder than something super beautiful that you can storyboard and plan out and get a crew together and have conversations well beforehand. You know what I mean? Because that's all kind of planned.
Yeah, I think the handheld one-man approach, I would say that's easier. But also, for the work that you're doing and I'm doing, I think it's yeah, it's nice to storyboard, and it's nice to have a big gimbal, a Ronin, or it's nice to have, you know, flags on your lights and all that sort of stuff. But you can't. Well, maybe you can. I found that the way I shoot, I can't set that stuff up and get things as they happen, because the people that you're working with are not trained to wait for you.
Yeah.
They're just going to do their thing, and they're going to get frustrated by waiting. Where if you show up with a camera and say, look, can I interview you, or can I video you doing this thing, and they say yes, they'll be expecting, well, I find that they are expecting me to be ready to go immediately, and they'll just start doing their thing, and I'll be like, wait, give me 5 minutes to set up, and at that point I'll lose them.
Mm-hmm.
And we still do it, but the energy's not really there, because they're like, ugh, you know.
Yeah, I see what you mean. Yeah,
so
that's actually a good point.
I think you're on the right track. I like that approach a lot. Have you ever seen Tawai with Bruce Parry?
No.
I'll type that in here for you. It's awesome, man. It's like the name of the film is Tawai. Do you know Bruce Parry?
I don't think so.
He's like he's a adventurer, really, turned environmentalist, and he's really interested in indigenous forest community, and over the last decade or so he's been to live with a few, and he's spent a lot of time with them. That Tawai film is really, really beautiful, and a lot of it is just he's on camera a lot, so he's almost like a part of the film, but he has a cameraman with him, and the cameraman is just handheld for the whole of this feature-length thing. There's a little bit of drone stuff in there that you can spot that a mile away, but the rest of it is just how you were describing, and it's watching these tribes people trying to hunt in a forest where there's nothing to hunt anymore. So they're moving fast, they're running with them, they're like looking up at monkeys and stuff. It's beautiful.
Oh, wow, that's cool.
Yeah, it's a nice one. That might give you some inspiration.
Yeah, I'll definitely check that out. Sounds cool.
I also think you're on the right track. You've mentioned already that in your project you've got a few characters doing different things. So the cold water swimmer, the waste treatment dude, and the surfers. I feel like that's a good framework as well, because you can talk about how this issue touches different communities. It's a nice way to do it, I think.
Yeah, it's a puzzle though. It's hard sometimes to work out how much space and time to give people in the film, because I need to draw the line somewhere, and I need to make sure that I've had a bit of feedback already, where I really need to make sure that there's a journey, and that throughout the film you can see the characters like learning stuff or growing in some way, even if it's small, even if it's just them, you know, figuring something out or going up against something and then coming away with a perspective. It's just trying to figure out who I do that with, where, at what time. Meanwhile, like that's not, you know, I don't have any funding, so I've got to figure out the client work, and which is where this has been really interesting, because I saw in your PDF a couple different approaches, and you know, where it's like a piece that you make, a documentary journalism piece that you can then go and sell to some media outlets or whoever wants to buy it, and then also like, you know, commercial work and just client stuff where maybe they like your style, or you can pitch something to them based on your reel or whatever, and they go, yeah, that could work. And if I've got a couple ideas that I wrote some questions I wanted to ask you about that.
Oh, absolutely.
You threw up a press release that you pinged me by email, which was about a seaweed farm.
Yeah. Oh, Scotland. That's yeah. I
didn't know if you'd done that on purpose as like a targeted thing, like if you know, I don't know how much time anyway, I spotted that and I was like, oh, that's cool. And And I thought, oh, I'll put a pin in that. And I don't know how quickly people respond to those, if I'm going to be too late if I try and approach it.
No, they are. So with those press releases, what I'm trying to do is, you can see in this membership, I'm often posting pitches, assignments, requests for assignments by outlets, right? Yeah. So that's like the last. That's the final step, isn't it, of journalism? You make some work and you sell it. And the rest of the membership is perhaps like how you do the how-tos and articles. And then I'm trying to share press releases as kind of like story ideas for people who want to make work but don't really know what to make work on. So that email that you caught there is maybe one of the first iterations of me trying to give people active stories to work on. And that organization, they're called, I think the acronym is SAMS, right?
Right.
They're up in Oban, which is kind of close to you. Yeah
it is.
Yeah.
I actually the one of the main characters in the film I'm working on is quite well connected, kind of like an influencer type, and he somehow met a couple that they want to stay anonymous in the film. I don't really know their name anyway yet, but okay. He sent me their contact details and they said, oh, I'm really interested in this. We've got a whole bunch of data we could give you for the film anonymously because we're seaweed farmers. And we have to collect data in the water all the time. And all of a sudden I was like, hang on a second, that's a contact. I could, because like they have an intro, I could reach out to them and maybe I could do something with this press release thing you pointed out. And I'll come back to that one. There's another project that I found out about recently. Again, through this film, I'm just meeting different people. I'm working with an organization called the Marine Conservation Society. And they're like UK wide, they do beach cleans and they collect data. And I mean, not just that, their focus is really on impacting, government policy and how to, finding through data and the work that they're doing, influencing policy to protect the marine environment. And they've recently been working on a project with a distillery way up north. I can't remember which one it is, Glenmorangie or something, where they've hired like a local oyster farmer or something to set some oysters up just outside the distillery, because historically waste product would end up just out in the sea. So they're planting like millions and millions of oysters out there. And that's in an attempt to clean and filter that water. And they're trying to do it in a sustainable way, and they're working closely together. So there's a whole story, there's a whole thing going on there. And myself and a friend of mine we've got water housings. So we know how to shoot from the water.
Oh, awesome.
It kind of fits within the work that we're doing. And I don't know, it just, it's whiskey. I love whiskey. It's a beautiful place that they've built there. I don't know, it's a cool story, And so anyway, both of those projects, because I saw your press release, I thought, well, it sounds like there's an interest for that.
Yeah, there is.
I don't really know where to go with that or what, I've read some of your things, but I'm still trying to work out, like, what do I do? And at what point do I start writing? At what point do I start sending pitches? I don't really know.
Yeah. The scientists at SAMS, through that press release that I sent you, I've worked with them before. I made a piece on just general warming oceans around the UK and subsequent fish migration. So like now they're seeing more tuna in the English Channel, and they're seeing squid up by you guys in Scotland, and they're seeing like all these weird, and it's impacting the fishing industry because there's no cod anymore because it's all gone up towards Iceland.
Oh wow, okay.
So I worked on this piece a little bit with those scientists up at SAMS, and they are incredible. They're such lovely people. They like took me around their labs and they let me film in their labs, and they gave me all their data on fish migration. So I think even if I mean, if you're interested in the seaweed story that they've just made their press release about, they'll absolutely talk to you about that. I think also if you have other questions for them about sewage or non-related things around Scotland, they'll absolutely talk to you about that. That Ewan guy on the press release is nice, and he'll just field you to the correct scientist.
So what's that process like? Because is it them that are looking for some sort of piece that they can use, or is it sort of like media outlets that are interested? Like, how does that, who's interested and who puts that out? Like, I don't understand that.
Oh, okay. The press release process, press releases are written and distributed by normally private organizations who have either like achieved a milestone or have made some sort of development in their field. So like in this case, it's the marine biologists inside this SAMS organization who I can't remember it. Maybe I don't remember it correctly, but they've made a breakthrough in seaweed farming, right?
Okay.
So now they write a press release because they want to tell the world, look, we've made this breakthrough. This is a big deal. Come and make a story on us and this breakthrough that we've done, because it's a new thing. And some press releases are bullshit, and some are just like marketing grabs, trying to get the journal. Basically, what they're trying to do is get the journalism community to come and make a story on them.
Okay.
And often they're nothing. They're bullshit. They're just people looking for free publicity, right?
Yeah.
But sometimes they're good and sometimes they're valid. So I'm trying to sift through and share the ones that are valid. And this one, because I've worked with them before, they do amazing things up there. But then what would need to happen is, if you find a press release that you think is useful to you, the benefit of them also is it's somebody telling you of a new interesting thing that's happening in the world, and also giving you access. Because half the battle is for me, I sit in my office, I look out the window, I think, well, what do I want to make a story on? And then I think of, oh, okay, maybe I want to work on conservation or something. So I've got an idea. Then I have to go and research, all right, well, what's happening in conservation? What's new? And then I have to go and research who will let me into this story. And then I have to make those phone calls, and then I have to make those emails. Press releases, somebody gives you that idea and you walk in the door. And then you've got a story real quick that you can pitch for sale.
Right.
Yeah. It's half the battle done for you, press releases, if you can find a good one.
Right. And so then would that be something that I would make and then just sell to whoever's interested in it?
Yeah.
Or if they're saying, here, make a story, would they have budget for it? Or does it just depend on?
Also, perhaps. Yeah, also.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Just because one of the biggest challenges I've got is it's really like time and trying to figure out where I can put my time so that I can get some money, right? And ideally, I'd like to not just be kind of breaking even and surviving month to month. Ideally, it'd be cool to do a bit better than that. But also, I want to do work that I'm interested in and that's going to be worthwhile, that can be kind of future-proof, along my career.
Yeah.
And it's just trying to figure out like what project is right for that. And at what point do I go, right, this is a good idea. The pieces look like they're aligning. I'm going to go for this. And then I have a plan, like I'll speak to these people, I'll approach these people and see where that money can come from. And there've been clues that you've been given out through this whole thing. So the next question really is, for both of these projects that I've got in mind, I guess I would, and so this I want to know, is this right? Would I approach the organization and say, hey, I'm super interested in what you're working on. I'd love to have a chat. Maybe if it's one of them, say like I'll get you lunch or whatever, and I want to talk about this project that you're working on. I'm fascinated by it, and I'd maybe like to create a piece about it, and then find out more and find out kind of where there might be an angle or what the story is, and maybe speak to other people around it and see what kind of comes up. And then maybe see if they'd like to fund it, or if it can become a sort of marketing piece for them, and if there's any budget there. And if not, I guess I could, if I know where to go, I could make the thing and then take it to a big list of media outlets and just reach out to a ton of people and say, look, I've got this piece of work. I'm stoked about it. It's very relevant. It's very new. It's innovative or whatever. Are you interested? And then kind of use the approach you've been teaching on here.
I would use all of those approaches at once.
Okay.
Yeah, and see what sticks.
So you would just make it. You just go, if you think it's a good idea, you just make the thing, and then you know that you're going to try and sell it anyway. So you just, how do you know like that it's the right idea to pull the trigger, and that you're not going to waste your time and resources and whatnot?
Yeah, that you don't. That's the problem. That's the problem. It's always a gamble. Mostly it comes off, but it does sometimes it does not. Yeah, is the honest answer. But mostly it does. I also try to make sure that if it doesn't come off, say for example, you go to Oban and you try to make a story on seaweed production, and then you try to sell it. All right, consider worst case scenario. You spend 2 or 3 days, all your travel money, perhaps a hotel or something. It'll cost you what, £500 or something, 2 or 3 days on a real tight budget. You try and sell it back to them, they say no. You try and sell it to media, they say no. So you're £500 in the hole. I would try to have a second use for it. So I would try to angle the project so that you can also use it for your feature length. Like the scientists in that documentary, I would ask them a few questions on sewage so that it's not a total loss, but it is always a gamble. I also try to teach people that you can pitch ideas up. I mean, I think you probably read this in my PDF. You can pitch ideas up front. It doesn't have to be a total gamble. You can write to outlets and say, look, I'm about to go and make this project. Would you take it? That is a solid approach if you have not necessarily if you have close-ish relationships with editors already. But the danger with that is that many editors will ignore emails until there is something that they definitely want. So you might get a false sense of negativity from pitching like that, because they might not respond even though they're kind of interested. So you might send out those the pitches, no one writes back, but actually 5% of people might take it if it's been made, and then it might crush your motivation. So that's dangerous. Yeah. So it's a really hard thing, and it's all a gamble, and there is no guarantees. But over time, you begin to learn what people will be interested in. What I'll say though also that I've learned with environmental pieces, so all of the stuff that we've talked about so far that you're working on is environmental issue driven. The hook that I've found to sell that stuff, those topics. If I approach, or if anybody approaches environmental topics just from the environmental angle, it's a very hard sell to TV or news media in any way. I don't know what. Well, I kind of do know why. If you can frame whatever you're working on from the human angle, it's easier. So like, and the reason that I'm optimistic for you about your sewage treatment film is that with each of the characters that you've been speaking about, you're approaching it through the eyes of another human. So you got, how does it affect surfers? You've got, how does it affect swimmers? If you were approaching that film just from the perspective of there's sewage in the water and this is terrible, you'd struggle. But the more human interest you can push into the issue, it's basically like, it's like a Trojan horse for environmental topics. It's like, look at these weird people and how it's affecting their lives. Oh, by the way, we're fucking up our planet.
Yeah, I like that. There's a Patagonia film that's been made about public lands in America. I don't know if you would have seen that.
No.
Freaking awesome documentary if you're interested.
What's the name?
And it basically taking back America's public lands or something, or
all right.
I think if you typed in public lands Patagonia, it would come up. I'm not good at remembering titles, but
me either.
It's really good, and I've used it as inspiration for this particular issue because it's focused on how America's public lands, like big national parks and stuff, just areas that are supposed to be protected and that belong to the American people, there's always like a threat of those places being sold off to private investors so that they can frack or mine or whatever. And obviously it destroys the natural environment. So you could obviously approach that and go, look how awful this is. And then, go to a bunch of demonstrations and do a really general piece about how terrible it is. But what they did, and I watched this thing, I swear, like twice through, and it's also really well shot. The interviews are really nice, and they obviously had a team doing this all across the US, but they focused on a couple key characters, like one up in Alaska, who's like the figurehead for a community there that's suffered a lot from the oil pipes that have been set up there. And it's like beautiful land, and they rely on the caribou, but the oil pipes and things have destroyed that environment and pushed the caribou further away, which affected this community who rely on that. And a lot of the people went to drinking, and it was like a generational impact that it had. And they've demonstrated and been arrested for demonstrating. It's horrible the way they're being treated. And so she's one of the characters. There's an environmentalist somewhere else in the States who kind of follows this issue, I think, more broadly, like across the US. And he's really focused on how the government is like not dealing with this situation very well. And depending on who's in power, they're just messing with this. They zoom in on like farmers and landowners. That guy, the generally interested one, I'm pretty sure he goes to this, Bears Ears National Park. Yeah, he goes there and speaks to the indigenous people there, and they bring him, like those communities bring him to some of the oldest paintings on those rocks and explain just what's at stake. And then, so that's kind of, you're learning through all these characters, their story and why this impacts their community or who they are even, right? Their identity. And then environmentalists who care, like Americans who care deeply about these lands that they don't want to go private. And then as that's happening, in the background, there's also this story of like the political side in America. So how Obama in his last year, well, previous presidents had secured national parks, can't remember who, right? Obama finally decided to protect a big chunk of Bears Ears. And then when Trump came to power, he was all private, let's sell off all this land.
Yeah.
And so the, I guess the growth and the journey of these characters happens as the policies are coming through, and as the damage is being done, and as further threats are being made to their communities, and it's their response that's being captured. And there's a portrayal of Trump. You know, there's a bias for sure in the way that it's portrayed, but it really paints a picture, and I love the way that they approach it. It's like a really long-winded thing to explain, but
no, I love it.
Yeah, I've just been fascinated by that. And I guess just to come back to what you were saying, what made that so good was how you just got an insight into different people's lives. You know, they have interviews set in kind of their home, and you see them struggling and working through stuff, and they're upset, and it's really people driven. And the issue at large, how it's, you know, so it all ties into what you said. And I guess that's what I'm trying to do. It's just not easy.
It's real hard. Yeah. I mean, I think that's why those films are few and far between, because it's difficult to do. But I mean, if you can, I mean, you're exactly correct. If you can approach from that direction, then you will have no trouble publishing or selling. I think it's also, isn't it? It's because it's much easier for us to relate to other humans than it is to an environmental entity or a phenomenon, you know.
Yeah.
Have you seen? I will totally watch that. I love those movies. I really like Patagonia as a product as well. I think they do great things.
Yeah.
Have you seen Gasland?
No, I don't think so.
Oh man, here, let me type it in for you just so. And it's by Josh Fox, I think is his name. It's fracking. It's a piece maybe 10 years ago made on fracking in the US.
Mm-hmm.
And again, he's found. So the piece that you were just referencing, I feel like, I haven't seen it, but I have a feeling that they hit an intersection, I think, which is why it resonates with you, between Trojan horsing environmental topics through human stories. But also the really hard thing with environmental topics is showing it visually. Like, how do you show sewage in water? How do you video dirty water? It's really hard, as you know. This Gasland project, he travels America and he finds communities that have had fracking forced upon them.
Mm-hmm.
And then he makes handheld, on the moment interviews with these people, and he finds instances where the phenomenon of fracking is very, very visual. So he's videoing the flares where they off gas and burn it into the sky. And he's found a few people whose water is so contaminated with methane, I think, because when they were drilling, they hit water lines or something, they can light their own water coming out of the faucet.
Oh my God.
Crazy film. I mean, I don't think his style will be exactly like yours, and it's very different to why the other film I put in the chat there, because he's like run and gun, and it's quite aggressive, and I mean, as an environmental piece, it's worth a watch.
Yeah, but I mean, all different styles are great. Ideally, I want to make stuff that's really beautiful,
Right.
and I like photography as well. So as long, I mean, your images, I've seen a bunch of your images, freaking amazing. Like, if it looks beautiful and it tells a story, that's the ideal place that I want to be. But in an instance where the story is really the most crucial bit, like this one, I've got opportunities to make things look really beautiful, like, you know, a sunrise swim in a lock that's got, you know, like mirror reflection, or just getting some really cool slow motion surf shots in a nice light, getting pretty interviews. Like, I can do all that stuff, but yeah, that run and gun stuff also has a place. And I guess I say that it's the hardest thing for me because it's the one I've got the least experience with, you know, where there's more risk, I guess, because it's going to happen and you have to be ready with your camera. You need the mics to have some reach, you know, and to not miss it. The audio's got to be clean. And so there's like all these things that really need to come together. And you're fighting for it to look good, but I think to some degree, I probably need to let go a little bit of that, you know, just for the sake of making sure I get the story, doing my best, but focusing on the story. I guess maybe there's a give and take, especially if you're a one-man band or you've only got, you know, a small crew.
Yeah. I feel like also you can, if you're a solo and something happens and you grab your camera and it's a bit rough, a bit messier than you like, if you get it, you can always, if you want to, try to recreate it later. You can go back to that person and say, hey, when this thing happened, it was great to see it. Maybe it's not possible in every circumstance, but you could say, look, could you say that thing again? Could we relight it? Could we reshoot it? That's possible, but I mean, obviously effort. Hey, there's a couple of, I wanted to also say though, in relation to finding money along the journey while you're making this thing, I think that you are like super well placed to find grant funding.
Yeah.
There's a member of our, oh my God, you're in an amazing place for grant funding.
What in the UK or generally, what?
Either, I mean, global, like international grants, or UK arts, like for example, Arts Council grants or environmental grants. There'll be a ton of money for projects like this.
Okay.
There's a member of our community called Sid in this membership too, and he's normally on these calls, so he would have been able to give you advice. He's better at finding grants than me, and oh my God, I think he might. So he makes work similar to you. It's not environmental, but it's community based in really close to Toronto. Okay. It's in like a up and coming neighborhood of Toronto. It's called Scarborough. So his project was. Oh yeah. All right, you know.
Yeah, I've heard of it. Yeah.
Okay, so he makes all his work there, and his project is called Scarborough Made. And I think he told me the other day that this year he's already nailed 50 grand in community funding for his films.
Wow.
Or maybe it's even just photography. Anyway, I feel like with a little bit of Googling, you'd find some grant funding that's applicable to your work.
Right. So I guess like yeah, I don't know, like environmental projects or environment and arts or media. I guess those sort of areas, and to see what comes up.
Yeah, I'd look for Scottish environmental grants, art grant, environment, UK arts. Also look at UK Arts Council. They have loads of grant funding. They're massive, so the competition's pretty high.
Yeah,
but I really think that I think that this topic is the type of topic that people will be willing to put money behind. and that's not blowing smoke. That's the projects that I've worked on personally that I've had the most grant funding for are topics that affect whole communities. Do you know what I mean? And I think sewage pollution in Scotland would. People would support you.
Yeah, well, so far I've had support. I think I've just been trying to figure out how to do all that and making time for everything. But yeah, I'm sure there is support. I spoke to one person who told me, oh, in the UK we're very poor in documentary funding, and I don't know if that's because if her angle was just, like BBC, there's BBC, STV, and then like you run out of options. I think maybe her angle was like TV broadcast or something. But if you're saying there are plenty of grants and things that I could look into, that's pretty encouraging, because I had kind of thought, oh man, okay, well I'll try and find some brand sponsors then, and still trying to figure out. I mean,
you absolutely could do that too. Yeah. I mean, like you say, it's time and energy for all of that stuff, but brand sponsorship is something that I hadn't thought about, and I've honestly never waded into that myself.
Right. Okay.
But yeah, art grants I would be looking at. I wouldn't be looking at TV grants or any of that sort of stuff. Yeah, art grants probably. Journalism grants as well. I'd probably stay away from like I'd probably even stay away from the like long form documentary grant world as well, because that's really competitive.
Sure.
And there's a middle ground. So often those grants will pay like up to like 100 grand, won't they, for a crew, and like shooting for 6 months and all that sort of stuff. You want the middle ground where you have a few people giving you like 10 or 20 grand, right?
Yeah, man, if I could achieve that, like, because I've looked at it, and I had to kind of put down the finance stuff, which I hadn't really looked at for the last year. I've been shooting this, and when I added up all of the days and all the edit days and all that stuff, and just put down what I would charge a client for that, it added up to a pretty significant number. Yeah. And then plus the time of the other people that have gotten on board and helped out, it ends up being quite a lot. I just think like this project is taking a lot of my time, and fair enough, I've never like made a film before. I don't have a whole lot to back up. I have a trailer I can put, that I've shown people, and I've got a reel and stuff, so you can see what I can do. But I kind of went with the imposter syndrome approach, going like, I'll figure it out, and I probably won't get much. But if if it's possible, and if there are grants out there, oh man, it would help so much, really.
Yeah, totally. I think that's that would be a great way forward, because and what that does is it relieves you from having to try to pitch the idea to a TV channel or an outlet and get that yes, when you don't know. You don't have to do that step anymore. If you have grant funding, it doesn't matter if you sink or swim.
That's true.
I've made some projects before on grants that have failed, and it's not very nice, but sometimes it's the reality that it's not possible anymore. Like when COVID hit, I was on grant funding, and I was supposed to be making some pieces it was on UK flooding actually. I couldn't get to England for a year or whatever, so the projects just died in the water, and they didn't ask for the money back. They were quite nice about it. But also the other thing I wanted to say is that I hope I'm not burning out your I hope I'm not talking too much.
No, it's great. So I'm here.
Good. There was one last thing I wanted to say, and it's about like your because this is a really big project. and you're going to talk to many different groups and lots of different people in order to make 1 hour long piece, right? So that your energy output and your time output will be massive if it isn't already. So I wanted to say, also with that approach, you have to wait and wait and wait until the thing is finished before you can sell it. I wanted to talk about maybe like...
That's quite common. Is that what you're saying?
It's quite common, but I'm not sure it's the correct, I'm not sure it has to be that way.
Yeah, that'd be great, because I can see how if this thing's done, there's no chance I'm gonna, put a full stop on this until I'm super happy with it, and I'm pretty, I know what I want this thing to be like, and I know what effect I want it to have, and that's why I'm putting so much work into it. But at the moment, you've put together this treatment. We've had some feedback on it, and they were telling us basically, really, really focus on the characters, tell us more in that treatment about the characters, because the film, I get it, the film's not in front of you, so you can't see that. So if all you've got to go by is a piece of text and a few images, a few frames, you need to really know what this journey is and who these people are and all that stuff. So with the girl I'm working with, she's producing this. I've got her help with all kinds of bits and pieces. It's been awesome. We're trying to put something together so that we can go and approach whoever. And yeah, I guess where we're struggling a little bit is figuring out exactly who to go to. We've got some leads that we will approach BBC Scotland and see what they say, but
yeah,
I don't know, because I've never shot a film, so they're going to be like, oh, who's this dude?
Well, but it doesn't matter, man. It doesn't matter because the people who are making work are always turning over. Like, people are retiring and new people are coming in, so everybody has to be new at some point. But I was also going to say, the other way to approach it is I think making a treatment for your hour long is absolutely correct. At some point you'll need that, so why not do it now? But also you can split the project and sell it piece by piece along the way to other people who are not in a competitive market with BBC Scotland, for example, or Nat Geo or whatever. So, and what I mean is, through this film you're going to spend time with, so maybe you've got 4 groups of people that you're spending time with. Why not package each little section up as a little mini documentary along the way, and sell that, and then do the next one and sell that, and then you can bring them all together perhaps into an edit an hour long. And that gives you cash flow also. But what it also does is it helps you practice the work on a market. If you're pitching that first chapter, so that first chapter is your surfers interacting with sewage water. That's only a quarter of what will be your hour long, but you're pitching it and pitching it and pitching it to a market. If no one's biting, that section's not good enough yet, so you can just read it. If it is good enough, you get paid out 10 grand, and you can put that, you can do it, that's your money, you can do whatever you want with that 10 grand. And then the same with the next chapter. Maybe that's your water treatment guy. You're pitching and pitching and pitching that, and if it doesn't sell, it's not good enough, go back and reshoot. The other, I think people are reluctant to do that, perhaps because there is a preconception that once work is sold, it's not valuable anymore, or it's not your property anymore. I've found that there's so many different non-competitive markets within media that it's okay to sell the same. It's been okay for me to sell the same piece, exactly the same edit, to 2 or 3 different outlets, and as long as they know that that's happening, and we have a little bit of negotiation and bartering on fee each time, and perhaps one wants to publish it first, and have exclusivity for just 2 weeks or something, but always the ownership of the work is mine, yours, to sell to as many people as you want, especially if they're in non-competitive markets. So maybe you sell the water treatment, or maybe you sell the surfers interacting with sewage to a surfing channel. And then maybe later on, those same characters appear in your hour-long documentary, but you're selling that to BBC Scotland. The surfing channel and BBC Scotland are not in competitive markets, so it doesn't matter to them. Plus, you get paid many more times, which is really valuable.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. I mean, that's the ultimate outcome. That's a really good idea, actually. I never thought of breaking it up into shorter docs.
Yeah.
To see if that's strong enough. But I guess that would really help me.
Sorry.
Yeah. No, I was just going to say it helped me make sure that each of the sections are strong enough, because the way that I've written the story is I'm relying on this structure that I've made for the film, where there's like a beginning, middle, and end. Here's how the story flows. Here's how, tension is built and released throughout, and how does it progress? How does it build up? And then how do we find the conclusion? What is the conclusion? What's the call to action or whatever? So I'm looking at it as this big piece, but looking at it in smaller sections could be really interesting, because it's true, it could help me make sure that every section, or the way that I'm breaking it up, it's strong.
Yeah. And the building the tension through an hour-long film is just done in the edit anyway. And it would also, it's a trick. Breaking up into chapters is a trick to maintain motivation through a huge project, because if you get these little wins, if each chapter sells 1 or 2, 3 times, if you get these little wins through the project, it pushes you up. It gives you motivation again. It gives you. Whereas I find if I'm working on a really long one, over time, I start to lose energy. I start to second guess myself. It might not work. It might not be the solution that you're after, but it is another way.
Yeah, well, and even if it's like 1 or 2 little segments that I can make from it, that, like you say, like just the fact you've said that to me, I'm thinking, I need to focus on maybe this, like the water users, and like interact with that, or have them interact with the water. I don't know, have them show up to a particular beach clean, maybe all of them, if I can get them all to come to one place, and then just get their reactions to the stuff that they're finding.
Yeah.
And have just some thoughts of like, hey, this really freaks me out. Or because one of the characters, I've spoken to her a lot. We've not done her interview yet, but she has said that she's really worried and really freaked out about the possibility of pathogens like entering her body when she goes into the water. So she really wanted like more data, more information from us. And so like those sorts of concerns, I'm eager to get them on camera.
Yeah.
And find a way to pull it together in a short piece. But it's more time.
It's more time, but it's also more money along the way.
Yeah, that's true. And more experience, because this whole pitching part, the reaching out to people and pitching ideas and stuff, it's exhausting, but they're really valuable skills, I realize, because at the end of the day, you got to figure out how to make money from what you're doing. So it's something to work on. I'm
just working on a like a how-to post for Inside This membership, and it's about pitching, and it's about rejection. So when I was young, my dad, I worked loads of shitty jobs when I was young. I worked in factories and on farms and all that sort of stuff, because I like to travel a lot. And every time I switched job, applied for a new one, perhaps I wanted a better job next time. Well, I always wanted a better job next time. my dad would always tell me, don't try and find a job, try and find 30 job rejections. And it's like, just that like perspective shift meant that I practiced not being afraid of rejection, because that was the goal, to find the rejections. And also in the rejections, there is a yes. Maybe there's two. Yes. So then at that point, you know, you found your 30 rejections and 2 people have said yes. And then you can choose between them rather than just looking for that one. You know, you make one job application, they say no, then you're disheartened. You make another one, they say no, then you're disheartened. If you're looking for rejections, you're like, fuck yeah, I got a rejection, let's find another 29 more.
Yeah.
It's exactly the same as pitching. It's just a numbers game. I mean, the first point of it is you need to have good work, which I think you do. I mean, you're working on a good topic. Technically, you have good work. So that's not a concern. The rest is just a numbers game.
Yep.
Yep.
I got to get at it, man. I think there's a certain amount of stuff that it just needs to go and do. And I think, you know, there's always like other stuff that you could be doing, and it's so easy to procrastinate and like not do the stuff that you know is going to be hard, you know, like finding your list of contacts and figuring out who to pitch to and stuff. And to be honest, whether it's with film work, creative, you know, this sort of stuff, documentary or my own projects, but also with like client work, I've still not moved my ass and really like pitched to companies and reached out to people and all that sort of stuff. I've mainly had people refer me, just friends, and then, oh, hey, he does video, but that's frustrating to me because I know that as soon as it's happened already, as soon as that stuff dries out, you're kind of just going like, damn, okay, well, now I need to do the sales bit, and you're probably halfway through something and got to put the time in, and you still don't know how to do it, and you still haven't had that experience. So I feel like it's pretty much time to start emailing a ton of people.
Yeah. It's the only way is self-invite. Yeah, I do the same thing. People refer me all the time, and it's nice, but you're right that there's it's not in your control. The only thing that's in your control is that email and the phone.
Yeah. And it's great, I think, feeling like you can do it. I think my biggest challenge right now is I just want to make that first sale, and then it gets easier. As soon as I've succeeded, as soon as I've done it on my own, had an idea, whatever, reached out to somebody and they said, this sounds great, let's have a chat, and then bang, it goes through.
Yeah.
The relief, I think, will be strong. And, you know, like, because you can get unmotivated, and I've done that where I've reached out to people, spent time on LinkedIn, and doesn't really kind of go through, and it's demoralizing and it's depressing because you're spending time doing something. It feels like a waste of time. But I know that the moment it goes through, it's going to be a much more powerful feeling, and that's pretty encouraging for whatever kind of work you're making.
Yeah,
to know that you can sell it.
Yeah, that's part of why I say like split that thing up into chapters, because it's also about simplifying the journey to that sale or to success the first couple of times. You know, you just don't make it harder on yourself than it needs to be. You know, hey, I also
in what way? Sorry.
Well, like if you split your feature length up into those 4 chapters or whatever, you know, then you'll have that psychological win a lot earlier, because you'll sell a piece. You know, you'll have that psychological win 75% earlier than you would if you wait to sell the whole feature length. You know.
Yeah, that's a good shot. I'll definitely have a think about how I can do that, because if that deadline or a sale can happen in 2 months instead of 9 or whatever, still a ton of work to do on this thing, it'd be amazing. It'd be great.
One last thing to say. we spoke a little bit about, we've been speaking about polluted water and sewage. We've touched a little bit on whiskey distilleries up there. And I know there's one in Oban, really close to that Sam's laboratory. Be interesting to see whether polluted water affects them, because then it's like what we drinking sewage? How is this, you know, or is it or maybe it's in our drinking water? I don't know. I just started thinking about drinking sewage. So it's an interesting, I mean, everyone can relate to that.
Yeah, it's true. Well, I'll look into it. I'll definitely reach out to these people. I'll reach out to all of them, have a conversation. If I feel like there's something there, great. I think I just need to send some emails, you know, actually reach out and do it. But to be honest with you, I know that we're time's taken. I don't want to take too much of your time, but the environmental stuff, it's great because the amount of time and energy that it's taking to do this. I'm super interested in it. I really want to solve this problem, or at least help the community with this issue. But I'm also like, yeah, it's great and all, but I don't want to just be doing environmental stuff.
Right.
I don't know what your take is on that. I got so many interests, you know, but maybe it's a good place to start, and then you learn what you got to learn in one area and move on. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think if you work on environmental stuff for a year, you'll pigeonhole yourself as an environmental guy. No, I don't. I think you can work on anything you want, really. What I'll say about that is, when I work on it's been a lot of conflict over the years, so that's what people begin to know me for. And then the only thing that happened around that is that those are the assignments people send me now. So I don't get people emailing me to shoot fashion, or to shoot lifestyle stuff, or to shoot well, sometimes environmental stuff. It doesn't mean to say that if I want to make a piece on fashion, I can't do it. But all it would mean is that I'd have to go make that piece on fashion, and then I'd have to pitch it myself rather than somebody offering it to me. But
sure,
yeah, don't worry too much about that. I don't think. Just
all right.
Yeah.
Just I mean, everything all links to stuff that's kind of already there, but it's really nice speaking to somebody who can help me just confirm it and say, just get on your emails, check your phone.
Yeah. I think you already know all this stuff. Yeah, it's just mostly I feel like with people, it's about confirmation that they're on the right track. Yeah,
I guess so. And anything new, like I want to learn, you know. It's like all about learning. You've never figured it all out. There's always something else you can learn from someone or whatever. So it's just interesting to have those conversations.
Yeah, or there's new equipment that comes along that you got to learn, or there's the other thing is now everybody wants us to do everything. You know, like I go filming, and as a one-man dude, you got to set up your own lights and you got to do your own audio, and then someone says, oh, if you're filming, can you do some drone stuff as well? And then you got to pull out a drone and do that with the other hand while you're running the interview, you know.
Yeah.
It's fucking stupid.
But it's wild. Yeah, I mean, I've just started hiring people, or like finding out who can help me with it, because I tried doing that for a bit and then started taking on projects that really just required more equipment and more crew.
Yeah.
And I was like, there's no way I'm going to deliver something good on my own here. And I just kind of realized, and at least just hired like a PA or whatever, sent them some money and trained them up or whatever, and said, look, I need help with this. I'll pay you well, you know, but like I need to deliver. And that's been pretty helpful. And now I've kind of realized there's no way, like these bigger projects I'm trying to go for, and there's no way I'm going to do this on my own. No chance.
No. Good. Well, I'm glad you've crossed that bridge already too. It took me a long time to do that. I tried to do it on my own, and the quality just suffers, doesn't it? That's the problem.
Yeah, and that doesn't help you long term, because if you can quickly work with people who are like better than you, and then your reels 10 times better, all of a sudden your levels just exploded, you know. And now if people reach out or whatever, you've also got some contacts, and you know how to maybe reach out or put together a team, and that whole process starts to evolve with you and with the people you meet, and your work increases in level as well. I'm still trying to figure that stuff out, but I think that's a cool approach.
Yeah, I do too. Hey, what's your website?
Oh man, my website is really old right now.
Oh, don't share it then.
I hate sharing it about, but as soon as I've got it, it's been on my to-do for about a year. And I finally got like a solid reel now that I'm just finishing up the edit. I got a good looking website I'm putting together, so I'll send it to you when it's ready.
Yeah, okay. I'll wait for that. Cool, man. I'd love to see that reel as well when it's done.
Yeah, for sure. Send it to you.
All right, man. Well, I'm gonna log off now. I'm gonna have to go do other things.
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you so much for your time.
Oh, no worries, man. I mean, this is part of it. I love this stuff. I love it's super nice problem solving. Yeah, think about grants, and also as you go down this journey, you just email me anytime. That's part of it too. Everyone emails me all the time, any question, and I really love that stuff. And
all right, great. Thanks, man. Thank you. All right,
dude. Pleasure talking to you, man. Thanks so much for jumping on this. I enjoyed chatting with you.
Yeah, no, me too. It's great. It's great meeting you. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Bye, mate. Yeah, you too.
See you later.
Bye.